I think relationships are everything. I hate the word networking. I firmly do believe it's relationship building and establishing contact with people. I am not somebody that had a foot in the door anywhere that I have really worked. It's such a scam. It's such a joke. I mean, maybe don't put that up.
Welcome to another episode of the A1 Experience. I've got my friend that I just met, Stormy Buonantony. Did I say that right?
Nailed it.
Very
impressed. You didn't even ask me beforehand either. No one gets that right, so that's amazing.
I asked Randall. I cheated.
Well played.
So if you guys don't know Stormy Buonantony is a sideline reporter for ESPN, college football, the UFL, and also spent 2 years as a rink-side reporter for the Vegas Golden Knights. It must have been an exciting time because they just won last year. Should have won again this year. But she's a 4-time Emmy Award winning journalist and the studio host of the Lombardi Line Podcast, a sports betting network on VSIN. She's also an SDSU graduate where she majored in journalism. SDSU is right by my dad's house. So I don't know why you moved back to Vegas, but maybe we could talk about that.
We'll get there.
But Stormy, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And that when you lay it all out like that, it makes me sound a lot cooler than I am in real life. So I appreciate the hype up. That was great. Thank you.
No, I mean, I don't know. I've never met a Emmy Award winning journalist. So I mean, let's start with that. That's pretty awesome.
Oh, thank you. The first one that we won, actually, my team for the broadcast that we had put together, I thought that wasn't like a real thing. I was like, how do you, because we are not doing scripted television, right? I didn't know that Emmys were a thing for regional journalists, and to have a real one of those trophies in my trophy case was the coolest thing ever. And I was so young when I won my first one too, that whole moment felt surreal. Going to the ceremony felt surreal. But I had an awesome team, and so it was very fun.
That is epic. So I want to see what that looks like. So make sure you show me a picture at the end.
I actually have a very funny story about that real quickly, and I'm already going on a tangent, so get ready for the next hour. But I won a student Emmy when I was in college, and when I was applying for my first real job out of school, they were talking to me about the different things that I had done. They're like, "Oh, you won an Emmy for this production." I was like, "Oh yeah," and they asked if they could see it, and I said, "Oh, well, the school actually keeps it, but I can take a picture of it for you or something." And they're like, "No, we wanted to see the show you produced." Mm-hmm. So that ended up actually being an endearing part of the interview process for me, and I got the job. So it worked out. But at the time, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so stupid. They don't want to see the trophy. They want to see the show. What am I doing?"
I want to see the trophy.
There you go.
So, Stormy, tell everyone a little bit about your story, who you are.
Sure. Well, I'm born and raised in Las Vegas, and I never really had a clear vision truly for what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I'm still trying to figure that out to an extent every day. Yeah, right? But once I had kind of figured out what I wanted to do and that I wanted to be a sports reporter, I kind of realized that Vegas wasn't a spot that I could do that, unfortunately. We have UNLV and, some minor league sports, but we didn't have anything professional. And so I've lived a bunch of different states, Colorado, Charlotte, North Carolina. And of course, once I leave and I realize, I make this leap, that's when the Vegas Golden Knights came into existence. Wow. And since sports has flourished like freaking crazy here, and everything that I never thought I would be able to do in my hometown, I can't imagine doing it anywhere else now. And so I think that's been a really cool full circle part of my story, is that once I figured out this is what I want to do, is all right, Mom, I'm off. I'm just going to live wherever I can get an opportunity. And now I get to be back home around my family. Half my family lives here. Half my family lives in San Diego. And it's been really cool to be back on the West Coast. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And so you went to school at SDSU. And a lot of people, what they go to school for is not something that they end up kind of pursuing, right? Like for me, it's business management. I mean, I guess I own a business, but I mean, not a lot of times they fall in line with that. So I guess talk about that.
Well, sure. To go back to where I said I didn't really know what I wanted to do the bulk of my life, I grew up in a sports family. So sports were always something that was very fun to me, but it doesn't seem like that's a real job. That's not something you actually do, right? So when I went to school, I was taking general education courses. I thought I wanted to be a nurse, maybe. That was a suggestion from my dad. He was like, there's always things in the medical field. I always liked anatomy and physiology courses and stuff like that. And so I went through that trajectory initially. And then it was my junior year in college that I took a radio television elective because when you do certain, like, when you're in school, they require you to take like arts elective or whatever elective to make you be a little bit more diverse in your background, right? So I picked radio television as the one because I just thought it sounded fun and different. And I fell in love with it. I had so much fun, but I still didn't think it was a real job until my teacher pulled me aside one day and was just like, I don't know if you have any interest in this, but you're pretty good at it. And if there's any part of you that wants to pursue it, you're young, you should give it a try. And I did. And I just dropped everything that I was doing to be a nursing student. I told my dad, and he said, I'll support you with whatever your dreams are, but I'm not going to support you till you're 30. So, like, I hope that you're serious about this and it's something you think that you can do. And I did. I ended up taking like a crazy course load my last 2 years of college so that I could still graduate on time. And I was going to San Diego State as well as Palomar College, a junior college that's there nearby, because SDSU only had a print journalism school. They didn't have like a full broadcast school. So I got broadcast experience. I was covering like high school football on the weekends, going out shooting and editing all of the games by myself. And that set the stage for what I do for the rest of my life now, is like one teacher telling me, hey, I think you're pretty good at this, and believed in me, and specifically said, and you should probably pursue sports. My sports stories in that class were so much better than anything that I had to do news related. Like all that depressing stuff, I was like, no, we have an uplifting story. He's overcoming tragedy. Like all that stuff I totally fell in love with. And like I said, with my sports background, I think that it kind of came a little bit more naturally for me.
Yeah, I like that. So you wanted to be like, I guess, the light of some of the more negative conversations that sometimes are on the news.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I can't imagine, honestly, being a local news reporter, the challenges that so many of them go through mentally, because you're talking about a car crash every day, or
you have to deal with a straight face.
Oh my gosh, it's tough and it's taxing, and like that takes an emotional toll on you. And I feel so fortunate that as a sideline reporter, in addition to being like the eyes and ears on the football field or whatever event I'm covering, I also get to do so many of those behind the scenes interviews and getting to know players and finding out their why and the things that they've gone through, the injuries that they've overcome to be on the stage that they're on now. It's like one of the best parts of my job.
Do you have some sort of like not a script, but like a format that they want you to have, or you're like, or you can pretty much go in any direction?
Yeah, I mean, during the course of a game, the game is going to dictate what we're talking about. So I can prepare 100 stories behind the scenes that are never heard over the air, right? But if the right thing happens with the right player in the right moment, and I can get in and share that story, that's what we're going to do. There are some moments where we're coming out of a commercial break and they're like, Stormy, this story is so good. Let's welcome everybody back with this, and we can tell the background of XYZ player, right? So there are moments for that depending on the story, depending on like the video that we have to support that story. But more often than not, I say like 98% of the work that I do throughout the week isn't actually seen on the football field. It's like being prepared for any moment that might present itself.
So when you're watching, let's just say, Tony Romo become what the new, sports broadcaster, or not broadcaster, but when he starts announcing some of these games, sure, are you pretty analytical, or like you're like, oh, he was good, or like as you're listening to people, you're like,
it is funny.
Where do they find this person?
No, it is. It's never like to that extent, but it is funny that you're a little bit more hypercritical. That's probably fair for any industry that you're in, right? If you see somebody doing something, you're like, that's not the way I would have done it. But sometimes there's also the other side of it where, wow, for me at least, that's a really good way to ask a question. I wouldn't have thought of that. And what I always try to think about is like, what's the audience most want to hear in this moment? So I don't come at it from the approach of, like, I have seen some people, particularly like younger reporters when they're coming up, they want to prove how smart they are and they want to show that they know all these stats and all these numbers and all these fun facts. But sometimes like the easiest, shortest question is going to elicit the most open-ended, best answer. And so there are little things that you find from watching other people that can help you learn for better or worse, but always trying to take something for it for sure. And you notice ticks of other people, which then makes you notice the ticks in yourself. And so there are certain things for me that I realized watching a handful of my games, every hit that I had come onto the air for, I started it with well. Like, it's just a crutch word that you don't need. Well, guys, or well, when I talk to so-and-so. And then you put them all together. I said, well, 20 times?
Yeah.
I don't need to do that.
Or
But then you
buzzwords.
realize someone else did it and you're like, haha, I'm not alone. But it's, it's just one of those types of things.
Insurance agents, what is every agency's highest closing lead source without fail? Personal referrals. What if I told you I could help you turbocharge the frequency in which you got personal referrals? In the last 5 years, I've written over 5,000 items and $3.5 million in premium from inbound organic sources, and it cost me nothing. How? Because posting on social media is free. If you want to turn your agency into a referral machine, then go to nicksaka.com/creators and sign up for the Insurance Creators Mastermind, where me and my team will meet with you and your team twice a month to help you with something that no other agency is doing. Imagine having the guidance, the ideas, the trends, and the strategies that actually work in converting more business for your agency. Go to nicksaka.com/creators for more. Now, back to the show. You get to evaluate yourself probably better than anything. Same thing with having a podcast or a YouTube channel. I sometimes don't even watch my podcasts, and I should, because I want to be able to, because one, it's like I saw it in real life, right? I experienced it in real life. I took notes. But two, I don't want to just beat myself up over what things I could have done better, but I probably should. I think a little bit of that's always helpful, just kind of evaluating your game, I guess.
It's like watching game tape. Same thing. Yeah.
So let me ask you, because I've seen some funny things where like either somebody says something, somebody's butchers something, or they maybe say something like offensive or whatnot. Or one guy where he like completely flips out and it's like everyone in the comments is like, oh, he for sure had money on this or something like that. Do you ever worry about something like that? Or have you experienced it on like, maybe you were there and you're just like, oof, like I don't understand.
So I think like if I'm understanding your question fully, like there's been a lot of times I've embarrassed myself on television, for sure. There's also a lot of things that like are out of your control that other people will do around you on live television that can be a little bit chaotic, or you never know. If you ask a coach a question, he's pissed off. How am I going to respond in this moment? Or if you've got a drunk fan behind you dancing, doing whatever, and you're like, why is this happening to me? Or if you just like, I had one instance this past year where it's funny because people think, oh, you're on ESPN, you're doing national broadcasts, you don't mess up anymore. No, we still make mistakes. That's why it's important to have those little stepping stones along the way, so that you can make mistakes in a lower platform with fewer eyeballs, so you make fewer mistakes when you are at a higher level. But I had one game this past year where I was covering a Miami football game, and my producer was talking to me about doing something in my ear. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, maybe like after the quarter's over, because I have to do this quarter interview with the head coach, maybe we can try to get to that topic in this quarter. She's like, okay. And I guess we had some sort of miscommunication where she didn't understand I was saying not right now, but we can do that after this interview. And so I'm talking to a policeman on the sideline, making sure that he's going to let me go talk to the coach at the quarter. And then I just hear my name in my ear from the play-by-play saying, Stormy? And I'm like, this must be the thing that we were talking about doing later. And so my whole brain has to refocus in that moment because I'm coordinating something totally different from what they just tossed to me about that I didn't even fully hear. You're just triggered by your brain. And it was word vomit. Like anybody that heard on TV, I was just like, I can't believe that just happened on national television. People probably thought I had a stroke. My dad even texted me like, you good? But we got through it and we moved on, and it happens. And that was one of those moments that I was like, I do not want to watch it back. But I had to, because like we talked about, like it's game tape. It makes you better. It's self-constructive criticism. And so I watched it back and I was like, okay, good news is not nearly as bad as I thought it was. Not good at all, but not nearly like the embarrassment level where I'm going to get fired. But it is like, it's really hard to watch sometimes. It's like, I always tell people, it's like if you sing and you hear a recording of yourself singing and you're like, oh my God, why is my voice so high pitched? Or why is my voice so this? You hate listening to your voice. Right. That's what we have when we watch ourselves back every day, and that's the job. But it's also very cool that you have evidentiary support of growth as well. And so I'll look back at some of the clips from when I was in college, and I was like, how the hell did you tell me I was good? Yeah. How did you hire me? I was so bad. Right. But, you see the growth over the years, and your voice changes and you get better. But yeah, I'm still very embarrassing, so that's fine.
Well, it makes you human, right? It makes us all human. But that's cool that you will be able to look back and see, damn, I've really come a long way.
No.
So,
but we were even talking before we like came on and recording about how like it's never as bad as you think, and it's also never as good as you think, because there are some moments where I'm like, I crushed that. And then I go watch it back and I'm like, nope, I did not. I actually did not say that person's last name. I got so ahead of it in my brain that I didn't say it. And so there are a lot of stories too that I will like have told myself in my head, and I've pitched to my producer that haven't gotten into the game. And I'd be like, oh man, I did a lot of stuff today. I'm like, no, half of those were actually in my head. So it's fine.
yeah. The good thing is that you're not getting an immediate reaction the moment it happens. So it's almost like you have to go back and study the tape, because if you're like presenting and speaking to 800 people or 2,000 people and you screw up, you're going to like either hear silence or you're not going to get a response that you expected. Whereas if you're speaking on national television, you're going to hear it from somebody later, and it's not going to be the immediate like, you screwed up. Right?
That's such a good point. And I have done that type of a role. When I worked for the Carolina Panthers for a time, I was an in-stadium like pre-game MC. I still, for college football for the national championship every year, I do the in-stadium emceeing for the game. And you totally do get that immediate reaction of 70,000 people. And when I say this frequently, my job on television, I think, is 10 out of 10 easier than public speaking. I hate it. When I do get asked to host events like you're talking about, for any line of work, I don't know how you people that don't do what I do it, because I literally do that for a living and I can't stand it. It's so hard. And you're trying to pick who you're going to make eye contact with. And if you think you make a funny joke and then no one laughs, okay, how am I going to move on from this? It's tricky. And I give so much props to people that are good at the in-stadium emceeing or hosting events or being able to make that connection and bring the energy up, because I don't have it. I gotta say, it's very hard.
I bet you would build upon those skills though. Like you have a strong foundation. And if you wanted to, I think you'd become really good.
I stick to what you know sometimes too.
So let's talk about being in this. What's it like being in the sports world as a woman?
Yeah, I mean, mostly positive, but I think like with anything, there are challenges to it. The unfortunate part about being a woman in sports, and specifically sports betting as well, which is another avenue with which I operate, that there's an automatic assumption, I think, sometimes when you are a female, especially if you're covering a sport that you couldn't have played, right? Like football is my primary sport, and I never played in the NFL, never played a down in high school or college or anything like that. So there's like this extra set of criticism of you could never understand, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's just ingrained in most people. And so for me, it's got a negative that there's that approach to begin with, but also a hyper positive for me in my life and career is that because of that, from the outside looking in, it's forced me from day one to overcompensate in my prep and to work that much harder and to put in extra hours and to have one-on-one conversations with people that did play the game to learn the X's and O's. And that's been really important to me from day one of me getting in this, because there are always going to be those people at the bar that say, oh, you work in sports? Tell me XYZ about this team, or what's a ground rule double, or some weird stuff. Like, just people do weird stuff because they want to show you don't know what you're talking about, but I do, and I could be doing what you do. And it's a weird dynamic. So I say that's one of the bigger challenges I've had to face throughout. But it has been such a positive that like it's made me stronger in what I do, because I want to know this inside and out. I do love sports. I do have this background in my life where my parents I soaked that in my entire life, with my dad playing minor league baseball and my mom was an elite gymnast and my uncle is a handicapper, right? So like I've picked their brains and the people that they know's brains, and it's made me better for sure.
Yeah, so basically over preparation.
Oh yeah, I'm like psychotic about it, to the point where some of my bosses at VSIN, where I work for my sports betting show, they told me that like you need to relax sometimes behind the scenes, right? Like you don't need to be here 3 hours early. You can get here an hour early. It's okay. But I just fully believe in being prepped for anything and being ready to go. And I think it's disappointing, to be honest, when some people don't.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. It's like there's that meme that's been floating around where it's like some fat guy that's like judging the UFC fight, and he's like, oh, you should have put in the reverse arm naked hold choke, like that's all you need to do. And it's just like, bro, stop
Well,
it. You wouldn't have done that.
So you remember the last Summer Olympics when everything happened with Simone Biles and
Mhm.
like the mental block she had, and she like ultimately wasn't able to finish the all-around competition like she was going to because she had this block about her twisting. And there's all these people on the couch eating potato chips like, oh, she's let down the country, da 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 da, without like understanding that you could never in a million years do what she does. No other gymnast literally in the world can do what she does. And if she's saying, I don't think I can do this right now because I'm going to break my neck, we should trust her and leave her alone. Like, you know, she knows what she's doing, but it's the like, what's it, Monday morning quarterback, right? Like we all can judge from our own situation without really knowing what that other person is going through.
And the cheapest seats have the worst views, right? So it's like, yeah, people just like to talk, just like to hear themselves, especially with social media too. You see like a little bit more boldness when it comes to people,
for sure.
people speaking. So I love what you said. Thank you for sharing that, by the way, about what it's been like in your shoes. I think that it's an awesome perspective. So I want you to tell us about your experience with sports betting and how for so long it wasn't accepted and now it's legal.
Sure.
Basically legal.
Well, yeah, it's legal in the majority of states in our country now, which is very cool since PASPA was overturned in 2018. And for me, like as somebody that grew up in Las Vegas and I'm born and raised with that language. And like I said, my uncle is a handicapper. My grandfather back in the day ran the old Santa Anita and Del Mar sports books. And so that was very much so part of my life growing up, that once I made the change to do what I do now as a sports reporter, like had to completely separate from that. Like when I worked for the Mountain West Conference, for example, I could not fill out an NCAA tournament bracket. Everybody fills out a bracket every year because it's fun and like anybody can do it. We're always wrong, but because there is an element of if you submit that on ESPN, whatever, you can win money for it, that's not allowed. Any major professional sport that has an NCAA championship, you can't have any bets or association with there. When I worked for the NFL, you cannot bet on anything that is professional football or even collegiate football. So it's like so many steps of my career, I was not allowed to do anything with betting. And then everything gets overturned and I moved back to Las Vegas and I'm working with the Vegas Golden Knights. And I got pursued from VSIN, which is a sports betting network that's here in town. And after like a year of us talking and I was like, I don't know, like even in the NHL, like I'm not allowed to really talk about that kind of stuff. I eventually decided that I wanted to do that. Like I love sports betting. It's such a natural way for me to think about sports. I literally learned sports sitting on my couch with my dad when I was a little kid, and we'd have the 4 TVs set up and Stormy, right corner, we're rooting for points. Doesn't matter who wins. We just need points, okay? Like that's what we need. Over there, no points. Like anytime that you see something good happening, we are upset. And so like that's how my brain was programmed.
Upset.
I'm not kidding. That's how my brain was programmed as a kid. And my dad would like have me fill out parlay cards for fun and stuff like that. And so it's such a stark contrast, right? And so I was so excited to take on this new opportunity and do that again. But even when that happened and I took the VSIN job, I was like, okay, but what about ESPN? Are they going to be mad that I do this? And they thought it was so cool. Like they thought that it was an awesome part of my skill set because that's such a change that's happening not only in sports like nationwide, but in sports television as well. You see on NFL Network, for example, on the bottom ticker, when you're looking at games that are coming up, it has the spreads on those games. Like that would have never happened 10 years ago, ever. And it's something that it's such a negative for so many people. And in some states, it still is illegal, obviously, too. But like more than anything, it's just it's been such an open door. And I think speaking back to your point about being a woman in the sports industry, like it's another door that is opening for women to get involved, too. I think people just like innately think, oh, like you probably wouldn't be interested in that, or it's intimidating when you go to a sports book and you see all the numbers on the wall. But it's so fun. It heightens your interest in a game like none other. I was watching and betting the Stanley Cup final this past week with Florida, and I'm just like screaming at my television the last 10 minutes. I don't care about Florida Panthers, baby.
I did too.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, I don't care about Florida. I don't care about Edmonton, but I need Florida to win the series. And when they're fighting for their lives in the corner, I'm losing my mind. And it just, it heightens the experience. It makes it fun.
For me, it's just sometimes distracting. For me, it's like it makes sports a lot more fun to watch because normally I wouldn't watch it. Some things.
Do you do a fantasy league?
I do fantasy football.
But see,
and it makes you watch like the Browns versus the Panthers, right? Exactly. It's just like, why would I watch this? Let me ask you, do you think long term it could have a negative impact on like the players and like their loyalty, or not loyalty, but like with what the players are doing on the field? You think that they're gonna become more strict on players and them being involved in sports betting and stuff like that? Like, do you see it going down a negative path is what I'm trying to ask.
So because of like a lot of the recent stories that have been out there with certain situations, it's getting blown up a little bit more than it would have been. Sports betting has always been around. Like long before we were on this planet and long after we are off of it, like betting is going to exist. What's different about legalization is that because sports books are reporting so much of this illegal activity or suspicious activity, that's why we're seeing as many stories come out as we are now. At any point, at any time, like think about Pete Rose, think about all of these other situations that have gone on long before legalization. Like people just didn't know about a lot of those things and there wasn't a way to track it. I actually think it's a positive that these sports books have relationships with the leagues so that if they notice a player's name or if they notice a bet that is coming out of nowhere, for example, in college baseball this past year, I want to say it was Alabama and their coach Bohannon had texted something about a pitcher who wasn't going to be available, and his buddies over at the local sports book trying to place $32,000 bet on a college baseball game. Like the limits are nowhere near that, dude, and you're out here in line saying, oh, if you guys only knew what I know. Like that's an easy way to get triggered and in trouble. But because of that, like that coach got fired, right? Like there are what's the word that I'm looking for? Repercussions for when you do things wrong. When you see the Jonte Porter situation, he was, actively trying to miss shots on the court because he owed so-and-so money and you're making bets on that. This is a player that does like less than nothing on the court and he's actively getting parlays for $80,000. Yeah, that's suspicious activity. Let's get this reported, and he's kicked out of the league now. So I think yes, there are negatives to it. There's going to be negatives to anything. In any walk of life, in any job, there are bad apples that are going to break the rules, they're going to cheat, they're going to do X, Y, Z. They're always there. At least with regulating sports betting, you can track those down more often.
Do you think sports are fixed sometimes?
I don't think so. I think that's a fun narrative for people to say, oh, it's rigged. The league's working against it. Like, no, I do not. I do not think that's real at all.
Sometimes it's a little fishy. Sometimes I think
we all feel that way though. Like about that's I actually credit the NFL this past year for doing like the script writing commercials that they did.
Yeah.
That's a fun way to play on something that, especially with sports betting, again, becoming broader and becoming more readily available to people across the country, that more and more people are going to think, oh, they're in on it. It's just not the reality of the situation.
Are you, I like to ask this to people that sports bet, and I don't know.
Oh God, what?
Are you all-time up or down?
Oh, so
in your sports betting.
I track it by sport. I honestly I have spreadsheets now of like what I do for certain things. I'm not a professional bettor. I don't pretend to be.
Yeah.
So lifetime it's not up. And anybody that tells you that that's not a professional bettor is lying to your face. Because people that think that they're hitting all of these 7, 10, 12 team parlays because you see it on BR betting or you see it on, like DraftKings, whatever, that is such a minuscule portion of the people that actually have success betting, right? It's people that are grinding it out every single day. They're studying it. They don't work other jobs. I always say this, if somebody works another job and they claim to be a professional sports bettor or they're a tout or they're doing whatever, like they're not making money doing professional sports betting.
Well, there's also the people that like sell their picks and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I don't believe
they lie about their record constantly.
Yeah.
Like those tout services, it's such a scam. It's such a joke. That's why I like what my network does. We have professional sports bettors that come and join us and give their input. But like our hosts we love betting. We bet ourselves. Anything that we tell you over the air are things that we have in pocket and that we have placed our own money on. And if we didn't place our own money on it, we say that. Like, this is just a lean. This is just something I think about, but I'm not betting this game. And there's that honest transparency about it where so many people are not that way.
Yeah.
And just like giving out picks on Twitter or like saying, here, check this link and pay my $40 subscription fee a month. Like,
I got blocked by Vegas Dave because I called him out on and our videographer's like he's like rolling his head right now. I called him out on something that he missed, and then like 5 minutes later I checked and I was blocked.
Oh no.
And I was just like, where's the transparency, you know? So I mean, you're gonna get some heat if you swear something's gonna happen. And I think they're selling their entire audience on like, I know who's gonna win the Super Bowl or whatnot,
and
right?
There's no such thing as a lock. Like, if somebody tells you this is a lock, this is a sure thing, that's a lie, that's wrong, don't buy into it. I think that's why like it sounds like a fake thing when you say responsible gambling.
Yeah.
But bankroll management I think is important, and like recognizing how much you're willing to put on something. If you're not okay with losing this amount of money, you should not be betting it.
Yeah.
And there's like different healthy approaches to it, I think.
Right.
Like there are sports, sorry to go on a tangent here, but like I said, I have spreadsheets of my bets, right? So like in the UFL this past year, which is a sport that I cover and I live, eat, and breathe spring football, I was very profitable in that. If I'm trying to grind out day baseball, do not. Like, what am I doing? No, that's just not a sport that I cover and that I am good at. College football, I'm really good at it. And so sometimes it's, you can go through a stretch, at least for me personally, where I'm like really struggling with spreads, but I'm crushing it in totals. And so then I'll start doing more totals than I am spreads unless I feel really confident in it. And so there are ways of like, if you are serious about it and it's something you like, of tracking your bets and what you're doing and staying true to like unit sizes and stuff, so that you can find a way to be profitable.
Right. I think all time, I'm pretty sure I'm down.
I think everyone is. There's like 5 people that are really, really like make millions of dollars from this. It's very, very rare.
Yeah, but I like the.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah,
sorry. The people that are the most successful professional sports bettors do not talk about it. Mm-hmm. You don't know who they are. You don't know where they come from. Right? Like, they're not on TV talking about how much they're killing it. It's a different world. Yeah. I'll just say that.
Especially social media, there are people trying to make money off of like, let me teach you how to run a business versus like they haven't actually built any successful businesses. Yes. It's the same exact concept.
For sure.
I like one thing I've noticed about sports betting is the psychology aspect of it. So like if somebody just got destroyed, let's just say that it's a 3 games between Padres and Yankees or Dodgers, right? Dodgers absolutely obliterate the Padres, right? And so usually sometimes when a team gets like destroyed, you think, oh, they're going to destroy them again. But in reality, they just got spanked. And so like their morale is like, I kind of feed into like the psychology aspect of it. It's like, that was me. And I just got destroyed, embarrassed. That team usually like wins the next game. And so like, it's not always that way, right? But I've noticed that I played a psychologist. So like, let's talk about the Panthers game.
I was gonna say baseball is just a little bit weird because like obviously pitching matchup plays so much into certain things, right? So like baseball series are a little bit different than in college football for sure. You can already like look ahead in a schedule and find, hey, this is probably going to be a letdown spot. And especially college athletes versus pro athletes are a lot more mental, than somebody that's been a veteran doing it for 10, 20 years. So like, yeah, there's a lot of psychology to it, which is interesting.
So the hockey game that just happened, right? The Oilers make this 3-game comeback, and it's like they force a game 7. So my theory was, and why I bet on the Panthers was, they just got spanked by the Golden Knights last year. They're not about to go down known as the team that got spanked and won Stanley Cup, and then the next one they had a 3-game lead and they blew it. Like, there's a lot of pressure in that. I can only imagine what that locker room sounds like or feels like. So I was like, I'm betting on the Panthers. Like, that was my logic, right? So that's a better example.
Yeah, no, I think that there is some truth to that, right? And what you said exactly about how hard it is to grind it out, especially in like a sport like hockey where the postseason is like 2 months long and it's such a physical, taxing sport that they went all the way through playing in June last year against the Golden Knights, and then they made it all the way back here. They have a 3-0 lead. They're probably sizing up rings. Their family's on the trip. They're planning celebrations that they don't know if they can have when, right? And then you lose a game, and then you lose another game, and then you lose another game. But now the pressure goes from being squarely on you to now the cup is in the building, and Edmonton for the first time feels that pressure too. They've been playing with house money this entire series, right? Like, so nobody expects you to win when you're down 3-0. Now you're in game 7. It's a different animal. And for me personally, like, I liked the Florida Panthers going into that series because of the experience angle from last year, because last year they were not healthy. Like, so many of those key players were dealing with injuries. Matthew Tkachuk couldn't even play in that game 5 that they ultimately lost because he had a broken sternum. He's back healthy. Everybody's back. Everybody's talking bad about the Panthers like they're going to have the ultimate choke job in American professional sports, do something that hasn't been done since 1942. And I don't know. I love it. So I'm totally on you. And in a situation like last game too, where everybody's on Edmonton, they're like, oh, Edmonton's got the momentum. They've got everything on their side. Sometimes when everybody likes something so much, it's probably good to go to the other side too.
Yeah. Except last year when the Chiefs, right? Like I bet the Niners. So I'm like, there's no way they lose the Chiefs in 2 Super Bowls, right? And then I lost my ass.
Did you see that I'm a 49ers fan? Was that intentionally to like hurt my open wound?
No, it's not.
'Cause
I hate the Chiefs.
I'm unwell. Okay. Well,
I hate the Chiefs.
so what's your team?
Yeah, Chargers.
Okay. Yeah, I guess the San Diego tie makes sense, which like is still terrible that they left us. Like,
yeah. No, I'm there's no Chargers fan that has been screwed harder than me. Let me explain. I was born and raised in San Diego. I moved to Vegas when I'm in 6th grade. And I'm a diehard Chargers fan. And then Chargers moved to Los Angeles, a city that San Diego doesn't really love. Like Padres hate the Dodgers, right? And so it's like, okay, well, I mean, I'm still going to be a Chargers fan, like, because they're still in California, still in Southern California. And then it's like, but, I've lived in Vegas for so long that if any team were to come out here, I've got to rep them, right? And then the Raiders come out here. The enemy of my entire football fandom moves to Vegas. And so I should support this team, but I can't. Their jerseys would burn my skin.
That's hyper relatable as a 49ers fan, like Battle of the Bay. We hate them too. So the fact that that's the team that came to my city, I am unwell. I do not like it. I am not a fan. People always ask me, oh, you work in sports? Like, do you want to work for the Raiders? Absolutely not.
Really?
No, I mean, maybe don't put that out. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
I know. I really like, I'll cover you gladly and I'll be, an unbiased party for work, but that is not my dream. I'll just put it that way. That is not my dream.
And it's tough, and it's tough because you want to see the city happy and thriving and stuff like that. And but if it were like the Browns, I would have loved to rep the Las Vegas Browns. I would have repped any team. In a perfect world, the Chargers would have came to Vegas, and I'd be the happiest fan. But instead, I got screwed the hardest because I should be repping the Vegas team now, and there's no San Diego team. But for me, it's still Chargers.
It still hurts.
It's still Chargers.
It still hurts.
I got to go with the Chargers. And if Harbaugh can't do it, then we're probably never going to win. And then I have to rethink being a fan.
I was going to say, are you excited about that? Are you excited
1,000,000%.
about I mean, as a person who was very sad that he left San Francisco to begin with, he's an amazing football coach. I think he's going to do wonders for that team.
I think so too. But if he doesn't do it, I'm convinced that we'll never win a championship.
Stop.
I firmly believe that. If Harbaugh can't do it, it's never going to happen.
Well, what you do have on your side is he has quite literally turned around every franchise or organization or team that he has been a part of.
Yeah.
So.
He's his optimism is
history is on your side.
Yeah. A question I have for you is, how has relationships paved the way for getting to where you are today? I'm pretty sure it's taken a lot.
I think relationships are everything. And I am not somebody that had a foot in the door anywhere that I have really worked. Some people, it's very fortunate that they have a friend who's knows somebody here and can have an introduction, can do XYZ. I didn't have any of that. And for my dad having played minor league baseball, right? That's not what he did for work for the rest of his life. And he quit baseball before I was born. So it's not like I have connections from that either. So every job that I've gotten essentially has been from me hustling, and I hate the word networking. I firmly do believe it's relationship building and establishing contact with people and, remembering things about those people so that when you follow up with them, it's an organic conversation and, hey, oh yeah, how did your kids' hockey tournament go? Or, making those little personal ways of connecting with folks so that, you remember each other, they remember you. It becomes more than just transactional. It becomes a friendship. It becomes a relationship down the line. And I can truly say, outside of the very first job that I got outside of college, every other job that I have gotten in my career has been because I made some sort of an impression on someone and I reestablished that contact and I like any boss that I've even ever had, I consider to an extent a friend. Like, yeah, you control my life, so we're not like friends like that.
Right.
But like, I know about your family and I care about your kids' names and I, know what sports teams you root for and we can have that back and forth. And when the Celtics win the championship, I can text you congratulations and, reestablish that connection again. It just means so much more. Like, and for me in my work, I think that's so important. And I'm sure in your line of work, that's so important too.
A question I forgot to ask you was, what's your favorite sport to cover and your favorite sport to bet?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, so as a sideline reporter, I hate being in the elements. So I love football. It's one of my favorite sports of all time. But as far as like being a sideline reporter for football, it's really hard. Field is massive. If an injury happens over here, I got to hustle over there. You got to be in the right place at the right time. It can be raining. It can be snowing. It can be whatever. Not ideal. College basketball, however, awesome. You can hear inside every huddle. If you can't be in the huddle, you've got somebody coming out who will tell you what they talked about. The court's much smaller. If I need to do an interview over there, I can just hustle right over. Controlled environment, air conditioning. So college basketball from just a like general conditions standpoint is my favorite. It's not even my second favorite, but that's actually like really sideline reporting. Hockey reporting is the funnest by far, because you're up against the glass the entire game. You're like getting raw emotion. The physicality of the game is amazing. But that reporting it's less actual sideline reporting because you're not as much eyes and ears as you are for football or basketball or other things. A lot of that is more like my conversations with players and coaches earlier in the day. Every now and then you'll see something that is very unique and picked up, or I'm reiterating things that I'm talking about with assistant coaches in the periods breaks, right? So it's just a different type of a job to bet. But hockey, so I'm curious if you agree with this or not. Were you a hockey person growing up?
Not at all.
Did the Golden Knights create that for you?
They 1,000,000% did.
Me too. So I did not grow up with the sport at all. But when we got a team, you become immediately invested and immersed in it, right? And so I became a fan of hockey then. And then working in hockey, you start to have an understanding of the game at such a different level. I love betting it. And because it helps give me an excuse to keep watching it too, because I'm primarily a college football reporter for VSIN. My primary beat is the NFL. And so betting hockey is what keeps me knowledgeable and keeps me fresh and keeps me enjoying it in it.
So this is, at the time of this recording, it is the end of June. With the hockey Stanley Cup was just yesterday. That's a Game 7. Now, in my opinion, this is the worst drought of sports of the year, right? Because there's just
the dog
baseball.
Days.
It's just baseball until football starts, and then basketball starts, and then hockey starts. So, we're in a drought. I just wanted to talk about that.
No, and think about me. I still have to do 2 hours of content on the air every single day. And all we have is baseball going on, and my co-host is a former NFL GM, so we're not even talking baseball. We are grinding NFL futures right now. We are looking at season win totals. We're looking at division numbers. We are trying to find creative ways to talk about markets that have been up since February. So
I want this on
different.
recording. What will be the Super Bowl this year in 2024/2025? What will the Raiders record be, and what will the Chargers record be?
Raiders season win total is 6.5, and I think that's probably about right. I think they're probably a 6 or a 7 win team. Sorry. Oh no, Randall's so upset. I struggle with I just don't know what Antonio Pierce is as a head coach yet. He had the interim coach burst, right? Where everybody hated McDaniels and they're like, okay, we love this guy. He's bringing the right energy. You have that bump. Everybody really wanted him to be the head coach. But historically, interim head coaches becoming head coaches, very few of them are successful.
Really?
So is he going to be the exception to the rule, or is he going to be the rule? That's what I'm curious about. Chargers, I think y'all could be good. Maybe I just have too much faith in Jim Harbaugh. I really think ground and pound. They're going to have run game. They're going to have physicality. He's going to instill a different type of culture with that team that they haven't had under Brandon Staley. Does 8 wins sound fair? I think 8 wins is very
I'm just asking
doable.
for your opinion.
Okay, yeah, I'll give the Chargers 8 wins.
Okay.
Maybe 9. I think they're going to be good. Oh, I know that's annoying.
We've always been fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's just we Charger games, and I hate that that's
sure.
a term. Like, we've chargered games, and what I'm
and he's got the advantage in that Charger Raider game from the end of the season. So
yeah,
sorry about that.
Oh, that was embarrassing. But Brandon Staley is so bad, and you guys have taken him, so he won't be bad because he's an assistant coach, but he's just.
I trust Kyle Shanahan. It'll be okay.
When he blew up in a post-game interview, I knew he was a bad leader. It was like at that moment, he snapped on a reporter for asking him a basic question. It was like, are you going to continue calling the calls on defense? And he's like, yes, I'm going to continue making the calls on defense. Stop asking me that question.
I remember it might have been that interview or another one around that time where like the Chargers defense was really struggling. And then he said something along the lines of, like the defense is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or like the defense is working. And everyone was just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, but Super Bowl. I don't know. I want it to be Chiefs 49ers again, and we can just finish this thing, but I don't think that's realistic.
You think they three-peat? That's a lot of pressure.
I
don't think so either, but I'm a Chiefs hater, so my opinion is irrelevant because I will give super biased opinions on the Chiefs.
I would love for the 49ers to come out of the NFC, so I'll just like put that down as like wishful thinking, put that into the universe. I have a lot of questions about the way that the Ravens have changed their team this year, but I feel like Derrick Henry being added to the offense could be awesome.
Just about to say, I think the Ravens go to the Super Bowl this year.
Maybe,
if they made Gus Edwards a god for fantasy purposes and stuff like that, what is Derrick Henry going to do?
I mean, losing Mike McDonald as their defensive coordinator, I think like is significant, but yeah, the addition of Derrick Henry to that offense is just next level. And the defense doesn't need to be the number one defense for them to still be really good.
What do you focus on? Like you play action, you fake the Lamar run, and then you pass it to Flowers. It's like, how do you stop them?
It's very annoying.
They're gonna be fun.
The Ravens embarrassed the Niners this past year, and that was when Brock Purdy was being talked about as an MVP candidate, and then he like goes and throws a zillion interceptions.
NFC, who's in the NFC?
I'm putting it out into the universe that it'll be San Francisco.
It'll be San Francisco.
I don't know if that's reality, but I would love it to be.
I mean, there's no other competition really.
They're the only team in the league that is favored in every single game this season. That makes me want to throw up. Like, we don't need those types of expectations. The cool thing about the 49ers is even despite the talent that they've had year in, year out, they've always had a little bit of underdog in them because, like, oh, you have a young quarterback in Trey Lance that's coming in. He gets hurt. Oh, but it's Jimmy Garoppolo, and we all, like, know that he's not very good. Oh, no, you're down to Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the draft. Like, all this stuff. Now there's expectations. Like, Brock Purdy had an awesome year last year. Can he do that again? Is that real, or is he going to turn into a pumpkin? Like, those questions from the outside looking in, I think he's legit, but the expectations are different.
One of the things that you guys have is actually you guys do have a home field advantage. Your fans travel deep. They go to away games, and being in San Francisco, I've never been there, but just looking at the crowd, it's like, damn, that's a big 49er base. And so your fans haven't really necessarily annoyed me, but I know that they annoy other people, like Cowboy fans, things like that.
Okay. Who cares if we annoy Cowboy fans? They're like the most annoying fan base in sports.
So I got to tell you something. This is funny. My wife was watching the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader special on Netflix, and they were talking about how like their standards have been so high since like the 70s or 80s or whatnot. Like, she would go up, this lady managing the cheerleaders would go up to them. She's like, why are you chewing on your nails? Like, and then you would get fired if you're like chewing on your nails, because like little things like that, their standards are like super high. And then I laugh because I'm like, those standards are coming from Jerry Jones, which makes me think, how disappointed is he at the end of every season when they lose?
If only you had those same standards for your football team, because
maybe that's why they choke.
Maybe
that's why they choke, because it's like too much pressure. And, they lost last year. They got blown out at home by who?
Yeah,
it was embarrassing.
It's like it's very interesting. The Cowboys are like always a very good, or at least in recent history, a very good regular season team. but the drought for them not winning an NFC championship is just ridiculous.
Wild.
But as somebody who, like, my hatred for the Cowboys started at a very young age because, like, I obviously wasn't around for those battles back in the day with Jimmy Johnson and all this stuff, but, like, you watch them in NFL films and you know from that standpoint. So I had, like, a checkers set when I was a kid that was 49ers helmets against Cowboys helmets, and if I was punished, if I was, like, in trouble or if I was losing, that's when I would have to be the Cowboys helmets. And it was a punishment for me to have to play as Dallas, and so it's just programmed not to like the star on the helmet.
Wrapping up here, I got some questions.
Oh,
for
now I'm
you.
like having flashbacks to that Cowboys loss, though. They just could not show up on defense.
No.
Like, what was
bad.
happening there?
It was bad. What is your advice for somebody that wants to get into the industry that you've gotten into? Like, how do they find success in it? Where do they start? And I guess it might be the same advice for any sort of, it could be podcasting, it could be kind of pretty applicable to anywhere. But what is your advice?
I think that they're two of the easiest things in the world to do. I'm such a control your controllables type of person, but work really, really hard and be nice to the people that are around you and that you interact with as often as humanly possible. If you're in a work environment, nobody needs to know you're having a bad day. You don't need to treat other people poorly just because something else is going on in your own life. And like I said earlier, like, hustle, right? The only way that you're going to grow and get better at something, and if people have bad things to say about you, you can always come back with I put in the work. I've done the preparation. I am the one that is waking up at 5 o'clock every single morning to put in however many hours I need to do to get ready for the show or to get ready for this game or arranging extra interviews or doing whatever. Like, the combination of those two factors, I feel like, will take you in any walk of life so far. And especially in what I do, the be nice to people thing is so important, from the relationship building that I was talking about earlier. When you're on site with an event, you never know who's watching. You never know who you're going to interact with. And it is literally the easiest thing to do is just be nice to people. Like, a smile goes a long way. Not treating somebody poorly is a very easy thing to do. And it's astonishing to me how many people have a problem with that when it's very much in your control to do.
No, I love that. I heard a story about how somebody was in San Francisco they fully intended on jumping off the bridge, and they said and I forget where the story came from, but it was like, if somebody just talks to me today or smiles at me, like, I'm gonna change my mind. And then that's exactly what happened. So, like, you never know when a simple smile, like, how far that can go just by talking to somebody.
Like, I think truly, like, we don't know the impact that we have on other people sometimes in certain moments, and, like, what someone might need. And the fact that something like that is so simple is, like, just a smile. Mm-hmm. I never get that. If somebody would just smile, it would change my whole day, you know?
Yeah. I wrote this down. I love that so much. No one needs to know you had a bad day. That is good. There's a fine line.
It's not their problem.
There's a fine line between, like, being vulnerable and just maybe just that, but also just being a jerk, because you had a bad day. So I love that. What is next for you? Like,
who knows?
What do you think is next for you? Just go wherever the wind blows?
I guess, kind of. I told you earlier, like, I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I want to, like, be. And I know that sounds so like, oh, what am I going to be when I grow up? But I still am very much so in that phase of figuring out what I like to do more than other things, what's going to up my quality of life, how much longer in my career do I want to be traveling every single weekend? Do I want to have a family at some point? Like, there's a lot of things that I'm just, thinking. I'm 31, I'm thinking about different things in my life and what ultimately is going to make me the happiest. Do I want to live in Vegas forever? Do I want to try somewhere else? I don't know. But I've never been like a 5-year, 10-year plan person. I'm super short-term goal oriented. And so, like, I just very recently reached a new goal that I was reaching. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's that next thing? I'm on a football crew this year that is there's a little bit of a higher level up than I was on the previous year. And, a couple years ago, my dream was just to have a football package, period. And a few years before that, it was like to work at a network, period. And so just kind of trying to figure out what that next thing is that I want to do. I'm not 100% sure. But fortunately, I am at the place in my career where I'm figuring out more of what I definitely don't want to do.
Okay.
And that's helping at least narrow my focus a little bit. Like, have you ever felt like that and you're like, okay, I love doing this, this, and this, but I would really prefer if I could have somebody else do this role and maybe I could do this instead,
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, figuring out what I absolutely hate and then delegating it, or yeah.
Like soccer's not for me. That's like one that I've learned that it's very interesting and I like making stories, but like I'm not going to be a soccer reporter. I'm not going to try to, get in other people's things. But I loved hockey, and like maybe that's something that I want to get back into at some point. Like I said, it's like one of my favorite sports to bet. So if I'm covering it again, I can't bet it anymore. So is that something I'm willing to give up?
Yeah.
Yes, probably. But
Yeah. Well, then the last question for you, but before I do, I just want to acknowledge you. I love your energy. I love your story. I love, everything that you're doing. I love that you know a lot about football. I've never talked about sports betting on this podcast yet, so I think that that's been fun. And just kind of speaking the same language there. So I acknowledge you. The last question I have for you, Stormy, is the definition of A1 is of the highest standards and of the highest qualities. And I just like to ask every guest, what are 3 standards that you live your life by?
ooh, that's tough. I think I've already told you some of them, I guess, with my advice for people in life. But like, I think that being kind to people is priority 1. I just feel like this is a foundational piece of life. Kindness and like loyalty are things that are very, very important to me. And like with anything, like there are things that there are extenuating circumstances, like loyalty and love being conditional in certain things, right? Like you have to have your limits with certain things and certain people in your life. Like you can be loyal to an extent, because if you're not being loyal to me, what do I owe you? Or, there's levels to everything. But I would say kindness, loyalty, and I think a level of authenticity as well is important, especially in what I do on camera. Like, yes, you have to be on, but like being yourself in that and not trying to be somebody else because of what you've seen other people on TV do or what you see other people on social media doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like staying true to your voice and your personality, and like just overall just being yourself and being good to people, I think is high on that list.
Awesome. Well, thank you for
I
sharing.
feel like that's like such a boring answer though. Like I need something cool.
No. Some of these have fallen in line with a lot of other people's answers. So, I mean, be kind, be loyal, and be authentic. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So, thank you for
What are
sharing.
yours? Can I ask what
And
yours are?
I feel like mine's are always changing.
See, that's already a better answer.
Yeah. No, because somebody did a reverse Uno card on me before, and I bet they'll be different. But if you were to ask me right now, I would say love people, which is in line with be kind.
See, it's a hard question.
Build things and create a life that you feel called to do. Like
love that.
no matter how crazy it is, like you should still do it. And the third one is just live an extraordinary life. So like travel and just enjoy it. So, but if you were to again go back to the first time, it's probably a completely different answer, and I probably answered that question maybe like 2 years ago. So that's just coming off from the top of the dome. So
Live an extraordinary life though. Like I think that's just such a speak into existence good mindset to have, right? Like we can all get into our ways of routine and doing stuff over and over again, but like don't forget, like maybe like live to work, don't work to live, right? And I mean, other way around, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. When we created
Be in
barbells,
pursuit of happiness.
we created barbells and briefcases. The 3 were hustle, grind, live. So hustle in business, grind in fitness, live life. And like we used to always, we got a blast on T-shirts, and that was the motto for the longest time. So right now I'm rehabbing a shoulder injury right now, so we're not really doing the grind and fitness right now. We're not grinding much, but you get it. So as Stormy, how can people find you, on social media or, watch you on TV, and just connect with you in general? How can people find
sure.
you?
I'm on Instagram at Stormy, but 3 S's. So it's like Stormy, like too many Y's were taken. My last name was too long. It was a whole thing. And then on Twitter, I'm at Storm Buonantony, and still, again, too many letters, unfortunately, to have Stormy, but that's what it is. And then this college football season, I'll be primarily doing what used to be Pac-12 After Dark, but I guess it'll be Big 12 or whatever's in that spot. But like the standalone evening game on ESPN every Saturday. So tune in.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you, and I think this was an awesome episode.
Thank you. You're awesome. It was so nice getting to know you a little bit.
Thank you.